Is Dameon Pierce an elite running back in the NFL already? What traits and skills does Pierce have that strikes fear into opposing defenses? What Hall of Fame running backs could best be comparable to Pierce's game? Find out all the skinny on this power running back. Is Dameon Pierce a force to be reckoned with, or is he just having a good season? Would you consider Pierce the best player on the Texans? We will dive into that and more shortly. First, Dameon Pierce attended high school in the great state of Texas. In Texas, high school football should be its own professional league. That's how serious they take it down there in the Lone Star State. Pierce would then go on to attending Kansas State and end up getting red shirt his freshman year. Later in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans brought the Texas native back home. When the Texans drafted Pierce in the 4th round, Pierce was not widely known as premier running back. Considering the Texans were a team that was in the rebuild mode, they traded away Deshaun Watson to the Cleveland Browns. Pierce was just another piece to the Texans' rebuilding project. Little did the Texans know about how good Pierce really was, but he was about to go from sleeper to stud running back in a matter of weeks.
Pierce still on his feet.
Where does Dameon Pierce stand in the league as far as good running backs are concerned? What type of things are holding the young running back from becoming the best running back in the league? Some of the answers might surprise you. Some of the big names that Dameon is sharing in the limelight with this season are Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and Miles Sanders. These are the top running backs in the league currently, and Pierce has kept up with these talented backs. Pierce has also done this with a bigger hardship than all of those other running backs. All of those other running backs have great offensive lines that they are running behind. Having a great offensive line as a running back is so important if you don't plan to be a successful running back in this league. Pierce's offensive line is one of the worst in the league, but despite that, Dameon has the ability to evade and explode through the very small holes that his line creates for him. Which great Pittsburgh Steelers running backs most are comparable to Pierce's skills? Could Pierce become as good as these running backs? First, Steelers running back to compare to Pierce is Jerome Bettis. Now, Pierce is not as big as Bettis, but Pierce shows the ability to plow through defenders like a mini bus. The second Steeler running back Pierce is a lot alike in his playing style is Le'Veon Bell. Bell had a much better offensive line, where at least 2 offensive linemen from Bell's team would make it to the Pro Bowl. The skill set that both Pierce and Bell share is their ability to have enough poise to wait for his line to make a lane, then explode through it. Defenses feared going up against Bell, because when Bell exploded through the line, he would seemingly go from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. Pierce is capable of doing that sort of running, but doesn't have that type of offensive line yet. What other skills does Dameon Pierce have that would make defensive players fear his game? What other Pro Bowl running back is comparable to Pierce's skill set? A major weapon in any running back's toolkit is the ability to make the opposing defenders miss in the open field. Running backs can do this in many different ways: drop step, shoulder shiver, juke, hurdle, or spin move. Some of these moves are for the select running backs that are athletic enough to pull them off. Bigger running backs typically run through you and not around you, but Pierce is capable of doing a little bit of both. Pierce can overpower defenders with his strength, but he has shown the ability to spin and juke. The reason that most running backs don't utilize the spin move as often is because it opens the back up to become more vulnerable to the defender's hit. Running backs already have a short shelf life in this league, so most running backs aren't willing to risk shortening their career even more by using a spin move. But Pierce feels like he has nothing else to lose. Pierce plays with a lot of heart and knows that he still has a lot to prove in this league, since he wasn't a high draft pick. Now, to answer those questions, the skills of juking and spinning with explosion is most comparable to Adrian Peterson. Peterson was still a power back, but early on in his career, he would do anything to elude a defender, whether that was spinning or hurdling. Another comparable skill that both Peterson and Pierce both have are the ability to be successful in the pass block. Probably the least sexy job for a running back is pass blocking, but it is important when disguising the personal sets against the defense. It is also important to add some extra time for your quarterback to throw the ball. Peterson has played with some good quarterbacks, and currently Pierce is with a quarterback that is very much unproven in this league. Why was Pierce so feared by opposing defenses early on in the season? What skills can Pierce work on to become more feared in the league? Usually when a rookie comes into a starting position, it takes some time for them to ease themselves into the scheme and pace of the NFL. But Dameon did no such hesitation in jumping right into the starting role. Pierce came out in the season with impressive consecutive games. Starting with the Denver Broncos in Week 3, Pierce ran for 69 yards and a touchdown. Pierce would continue his reign of fear to face the Chicago Bears, where Pierce would have 80 yards and 1 touchdown. He could not be stopped at this point. In Week 5, the Texans face off against a potential playoff team in the Los Angeles Chargers. Pierce decided that day that he was going to put the whole league on notice with his performance. Pierce ran the ball for 134 yards and 1 touchdown. However, Pierce was not done making a statement. The very next week, going down to face a young and hungry Jacksonville Jaguars, he would continue to frustrate defenses as he ran for 99 yards and another touchdown. He would begin to plateau in the season, and this is where Pierce has to improve in future seasons, which is to not allow himself to burn out too early in the season. Another trait that Pierce needs to work on for his future is getting into the end zone. Nothing strikes more fear into defenders than being a dangerous scoring threat. Pierce only had a total of 4 touchdowns the whole season, and they all came in that 4-week span. Scoring more throughout the season and spreading it out throughout the season can only help Pierce in the success of the Texans. If Pierce can improve in his career by staying consistent throughout the season and become that lethal scoring threat, then Pierce could become the most feared running back in the league. What makes Pierce different than most running backs? What does Pierce's future hold? As earlier discussed, Pierce is among the top running backs in the league. But he is putting up the yards, but he is doing it with about half the carries as the rest of those running backs on that list. Pierce is running with an average on the season of 4.6 yards per carry, which leads the league. This might seem like a small stat, but the Texans have been a run-heavy offense this whole season, and with Pierce being the bell cow of the Texans' backfield, that number should be much lower. But that speaks on Pierce's skills and the type of season he is having. Pierce's future in this league seems bright, so long as the Texans can build up their offensive line. The Texans going forward can still be the run-heavy offense, which would also benefit Pierce's legacy. Pierce accumulated almost 1,000 yards this season, and only did it on 220 carries. Pierce is making the best of his situation despite not getting more carries, and the Texans being such a bad team right now. The potential for the same explosive running back is to get even stronger with more experience. Also, the Texans really didn't give Pierce their complete trust in the running game. The Texans coaching split carries between Rex Burkhead and Pierce. Perhaps now that the Texans know what to expect from Pierce going forward, maybe next season Pierce will become the total bell cow. Unfortunately, the young running back had his season come to an abrupt halt in Week 13 when Pierce went down with a high ankle sprain. Usually ankle injuries are bad for any athlete, but Pierce being young should be able to recover nicely. What are some of the things that Pierce will need to work on to create more fear towards those future opposing defenders? Well, one of the main skills is the ability to be a versatile running back. All of those top running backs that Pierce has been named alongside can receive the ball through screen passes. Being a dual threat weapon as a running back makes you get more snaps. At this point in Pierce's career and the potential of what he could do, getting him more snaps in the game could not only improve his stats, but it can also make his team around him more successful.